guys, I'm going to be adding a little extra detail to the Ukrainian build. Let me explain to you what I got going on here. Alright, excuse the clamps as I am just gluing the body down, making sure that everything locks into place. This portion of the body is going to be exposed even when you put the folded top on the back of the car. Now, I wasn't too thrilled with that. I mean, I figured I could just glue it and clamp it in there and hope for the best, but I wasn't too crazy with the way that looked, as these seams will be covered by the windshield for the most part, so you won't see them too much, but this one will not. So what I decided is, this is supposed to be a German luxury car. From what I've seen, it was meant to compete with Mercedes, the Maybach, which is a premier luxury car of the time. So I figured it would actually have some sort of chrome trim or body ornamentation. So I figured I would just make one using this little bit of photo etch material here, which I have another one. Don't know if you guys can see that here, right there. So this is actually from a Metal Earth kit. I think it's from an Apache helicopter. So what I did was I used my new tool here, the photo etch bending tool, which I'm going to demonstrate in a second. And I made this cover. Let's see if we can put it in there just so I can show you guys where it's going to sit. No, it's going to sit right there. As it's going to slide in between the seat and the door panel, and it's going to sit right there. Of course, it's not going to go in now because it went in perfectly before, but now it's going to fight me. There we go. Now that's going to be our little bit of bodywork ornamentation there, and which perfectly fits right there with the convertible top boot installed on the body. So that gives us a little bit of trim. It folds down over into the door, into the interior, and just gives it a little bit of a classy look, I think. For what I think it would have been in the 30s, the little bit of the lines in there just kind of go along if you look at the steering wheel. So I think it's going to be a nice little added detail to the car. So now, I'm going to show you exactly how I made that. This is a photo etch bending tool, which I picked up a while back. I had it on the channel as I was showing off some of the new tools that I've gotten. It's a pretty interesting kit, as every one of these bits here can be used to bend the photo etch that you're using. I'm not really sure what all these rounded indentations are for. I haven't figured out what that kind of use is. As you can tell, it's not all in English, so I'm not really sure what everything says here. The back of the box does show you how to use it to bend photo etch for folding boxes and making all sorts of bends. As I said, I'm not really sure what the other notches are for. We'll discover that as we use the tool. Now, the way you use the tool is you loosen the knob, rotate the block here, loosen the knob, rotate the block to the desired size that you need for the whatever photo etch you're bending, which for me would be here. Bring the knob back down. Then you're going to take your photo etch part and you're going to make mark of where you want to bend it, which I've already done that. Then you're going to take it and press it within this tool, and alright, that let's see how we can set this up. And let's see if we can bend this where we want it. Then you're going to press down here. And let me just check my sizing with the other part that I bent. Can't be an exact fit because it's an opposite. But if we're close, I will be happy. And fortunately, when you're dealing with stainless steel, it gets magnetic. And your tweezers, if they're metal, won't pick it up. And looks like we are pretty much dead on even with the other piece. Now, in order to conduct the folding, what you do is you take a razor blade that comes with the kit. You're going to go down on your little board here. And let's just make sure everything doesn't move. You're going to come right up to the edge of the press. You got to make sure the press is nice and tight among your photo etch part. Come up right up to it. And then you're just going to bend the part there. And once you get that done, you should have a perfect, or near perfect, right angle bend on your photo etched part, like we have here. You guys can see that. This is a pretty neat little tool. And now let's just test it on our body. And let me see how this came out. And hopefully I didn't bend too much. And it'll fit nicely right there. And it fits perfect. Gonna have to use a little CA glue to glue it down. But as you can see, if I'm holding this right, there is our classy little trim piece to dress up that little gap there. So there you go, guys. An interesting little tool to do a little bit of extra detailing. Now we're going to put it away because we don't want to damage it. It's called the Etched Chip Processing Vise. Whatever that means, from Taiwan. Also comes with some sort of a mat. I'm not really sure what that's for, but sure along the way somewhere, if anybody here has used this, you guys will let me know what that is. Now, I'm just going to pack it away now in its box. As treat your tools with respect, and your tools will always be there for you. And we are done with our photo etch bending. Alright guys, we're going to be installing those parts, and then I'll be back with the finished product. Alright guys, hold on, let me just pause this here. What do you think? Now we have some really classy looking stainless steel trim. You see how it folds over into the body, running along line with the ridges, kind of matches what's going on in the door panel. Looks really good the way that sits.
Huh? Are you recording?
Yeah. So there we go. You can see the stainless steel door panel just mesh right in with the body. And they just look really good, and how the lines in the panels just match the interior door panels. This is going to cover over the seams there, leading to the convertible top, and just adds a classy little look to the back there. Okay guys, that's it for this quick video. We'll be back with more. Alright guys, we're going to be applying some metal foil to the Admiral Cabriolet. As you can see here, I've already done the passenger side. And you can see how good that looks. Now, this is not bare metal foil. This is actually the Hasegawa mirror finish is what they call it. I used it on my previous build of the Corvair. I'll get you a look at the package here. This is one sheet you get in here. It's a little pricey, but it is amazing for what it is. It's actually a vinyl. It's not a metal at all. But it's so thin that it just kind of wraps itself around whatever you put it on. And then the adhesive they put on it. See, I'm not sure if it's a total vinyl at all. I'm not really sure what it is. If you guys can read this, maybe somebody let me know what that is. Let me see if I can get this to you with it. Hold on, let's take that out of there. Anybody who watches my videos who can read Japanese, let me know what that says, because I would really love to know what this is. It's kind of stretchy like vinyl, and it really conforms itself to everything you put it on. So is it vinyl? Maybe. I don't know. I'm going with yes, it's vinyl. Now, this stuff reacts very similar to bare metal foil. If you watch my previous video, you know why I choose to use it on the long, simple chrome items. Because unlike bare metal foil, it won't sink itself into all of the cracks and crevices of the project you're working on. Because it is a vinyl, it won't actually, you can't actually conform it into every little nook and cranny. So, what I'm going to do is just use it for the long chrome strips, because it doesn't get the bare metal foil wrinkle, if you can see that there, due to the fact that it is a bit thicker. So it actually looks quite a bit better than bare metal foil when you use it for straight chrome trim. But bare metal foil is still my preferred choice when I'm getting into a much smaller area with all sorts of crevices and nooks and crannies. I would still prefer bare metal foil for that. But this is tops here. So it's very easy. Exactly the same as bare metal foil. Just gonna cut a piece out. And it actually seems to cut quite a bit easier than bare metal foil. Just bring it straight down. I know you guys might be asking, why am I cutting this so wide if I'm doing that thin little trim strip? And there's a very good reason for that. Because in order to cover this entire strip, I have to cover not just the upper edge, but also the sides of the strip. As you see here, it is extended out from the body. So we want to make sure we have all sides of it covered. So for that, we have to actually cut it a bit wider than the strip itself so that we can fold it down over the sides. Although I might have gone a little wider than I hoped, but that's okay. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay down masking tape. This is something I do. You don't have to. I do it both with bare metal foil and this, as the masking tape is a low-tack tape, and what it does, it prevents the adhesive. As you all know, if you've laid down bare metal foil, that adhesive can get into the paint, and then you got a lot of cleaning up to do. It's similar to here with the mirror finish. And if I lay down the low-tack tape, when I peel the tape off, very little, actually no residue left with this Tamiya tape, and very little cleanup. So you're masking the same way you would with paint. First thing I'm going to do is lift up one corner. We want to be able to reach this thing. And then I'm going to use my flat tweezers to lift up on the foil. Now, well, I got a fan going here. Pro tip to you guys, don't have a fan going. Because it makes, let me just turn this fan off. I'll be right back. Okay, I just aimed the fan away from me. Alright, so now we're going to lay the foil, right on the body. There we go. Just give it a little tap down on the top there. There we go. You want to try and keep your fingers off it, because I have found that even though the adhesive on this actually seems to be better than what they use on bare metal foil, it will come right off with your finger touching it. So you want to make sure you touch it as little as possible. So now we have our foil mirror finish. I gotta find another way to talk about this so we don't confuse it with bare metal foil. The Hasegawa. Let's just call it Hasegawa. How about that? What you're gonna do now is you're just going to mat it down on the upper surface, not the sides yet. Just on the upper surface so that we make sure we have full contact. With the upper surface of the item that we are foiling. Then we're going to go on the edges with our Q-tip first, just to get it matted down there. And then the lower edge. I mean, this stuff really is a dream to work with. But I suppose it depends on what you're foiling as to how well this stuff will work. This strip here is very easy to do. It's right on the outer edge of the body. No curves, nothing. It's just a very straight surface. So now we're going to burnish it down with our toothpick, the same way you do with bare metal foil. Okay, the gap that's here, there is a gap here because there's another part that goes on the car here, which we haven't installed yet. And we want to make sure that we get this all burnished down, all on the edges, as that's going to be the hardest part to cut out. Now we're going to burnish down the underside. And you always want to make sure you do one side at a time, so that you make sure the material you'll have enough material to actually wrap it around the item that you're foiling. There we go. Now we'll do the edges to make sure that we are sealed. We'll burnish it down a little more with the toothpick. And there, for all intents and purposes, we are foiled. Now comes the cut. Let's get our magnifying specs here. Can you guys see this? Okay, I think you can. Now we're just going to lay right across the trim strip, and we are just going to bring the blade slowly across. Now, since this is a bit softer than bare metal foil, it is quite a bit easier to carry the blade across it, as it doesn't seem to catch the way bare metal foil does. But just patience, go nice and slow. And you shouldn't have any issues with this Hasegawa foil. Now, the tough part is going to be making sure that we cut fully around the ends so that when you lift it, you don't remove what you just foiled. And that's there. Okay, now we are going to use our pointed tweezers. We're going to lift, and hopefully we did cut well enough that... Oh, no, we did not there. As it lifted right off. Let's see if we can save this, or will we have to cut another piece just for the end there. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do that piece separately. Okay, we're gonna save as much of that as we can, and maybe just use that to cut our final corner piece there. And first, we're gonna take a look at this. We're gonna burnish this down a little bit. And I think we have to trim that just a little bit more. Now, let's see if we can erase this one little part here that I'm not happy with. Let's see, because we did cut the other side better than this side. And it's always important to start with a fresh blade. Let's see what we get when we remove our tape. There we go. And that's better. And I know I'm being a little nitpicky with it, but the other side did come out so well that I would just kind of have to try to make this side just as good. Sometimes it works great and sometimes it doesn't. You have to start over again, but we're going to see if we can do this without starting over again. Let's see. Let's take the tape off. Let's see how well it looks. I think I'm going to need a new blade. I may have to do this side over again. First, let's get a new blade. I had to go over that off camera as I really had to get in there tight to get this foil the way I wanted it. So I couldn't film all of that, but I can show you the result. Here we have our Hasegawa foil. Some little paint correction I'm gonna have to do here and there. We have our Hasegawa foil done. Now we're gonna have to remember to create the split for the door panel. Which breaks the foil there, gives it a much more realistic appearance. Unfortunately, it doesn't have one here in the front, so we're going to leave that alone. Same way we did here. Now we have to go back and foil that one little part there. I'm not going to bore you with that. There's also another piece of trim that goes here, which I don't know why they made that a separate part, but they did. So I'm going to have to glue that on and then foil that. So I just want to show you guys again how this Hasegawa foil works and how good it is and why it can do certain things better than bare metal foil. But then again, bare metal foil can do certain things better than the Hasegawa. Alright guys, I'm going to continue with this and we'll be back. Take a look at what else I've done with the foil. And also gives you another idea of the areas where bare metal foil is better than Hasegawa and areas where Hasegawa is better than bare metal foil. As I said on my Corvair build, the bare metal foil is better than the Hasegawa because it can actually, you can get it to conform to all of the cracks and crevices and all the different shapes that are in some of these parts. This trim piece here, I had originally painted with the all-clad chrome process to give it a nice chrome appearance. But I noticed that when put next to the Hasegawa, which is a bright, brilliant chrome, as you can see here, how that's all done, it looked too dark. So I decided to use the bare metal foil, and I wanted to keep all of the detail work inside of this part visible. So with a lot of burnishing and a lot of work, the bare metal foil, I got it into all the cracks and crevices in this part while maintaining a brilliant chrome finish. And that is where bare metal foil shines, in the fact that it is metal and it'll mold itself to all of the little cracks and crevices. Now this is the Hasegawa, which works better for simpler shapes and gives you a nice mirror-like finish on all of these chrome fittings on the hood. Here you can see I had a little trouble with the bare metal foil on this side, but still it conformed very well and matched the part very nicely. And you can see the Hasegawa here also on all the fittings. So each foil has its own particular uses that it excels at, and like I said in the previous video, I am going to recommend them both for whatever that's worth. Now, let's take another look at the Admiral Cabriolet. It is now perfectly mounted to the chassis, which was a bit of a job in itself, as this chassis is a multi-piece unit, and you have to make sure you have everything assembled exactly square. Now, that's a little difficult sometimes because some of the parts are not square to begin with, and so they will cause you a little problem when attaching to the body. So if you're working on this kit, you're going to notice that when you assemble the frame, or at least when I did, the frame is a little bit twisted. So you're going to have to take the frame and glue it down in pieces, in sections, as there are multiple attachment points to the frame. I'll show you right here on the instructions. And where's my handy trusty pointer? We have an attachment point in the rear, which it goes into the rear hump. Then we have an attachment point. Well, let's focus. We have an attachment point here, and we have an attachment point here. So we have 1, 2, 3 attachment points on each side for the frame. And then you're going to want to also lay a bead of glue across the frame as well, because you're going to notice that it's going to be one side is going to sit a little bit higher. At least it did on mine. It may not be on all of them, but on mine it was. So I think one of the frame rails was actually a little bit warped. So what I did was I applied glue to all of the mounting points. Then I put a bead of glue on the frame itself. I attached it to the body, making sure that it stayed within its mounting points. You'll see the little mounting point engraved in the body when you're putting it together. Then I would tape it down to hold it steady. Then I would make sure that it's secured on the next mounting point, tape it down, and so forth all the way to the front till you have the chassis taped into the car. I'll show you right here in a couple of photographs I took while I was doing it. Now, once everything is dry, and you really got to give it time to dry and cure, you're going to notice that the body itself will help keep help square off the frame and keep it level. As once the glue dries, it's going to hold the plastic in place flat against the body, so you won't have any issues with warping or one tire being up in the air while the others are down on the ground. At least I hope not. I haven't tried it yet because I don't have the tires on yet. But here you see all the detail work and the weathering that I put into the underside of the chassis, as I wanted it to look like a car that's been driven but recently cleaned up and maybe had a restoration done to it. So it's a little bit dirty underneath, but on the outside it's all polished and shiny. Now, I didn't put anything in the wheel wells, which I'm kind of regretting now. I mean, once the tires are on it, as you can see, not too much is visible. So I guess I'll get over that part. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is another fitment issue I found. This is the upper radiator hose. Let's get our handy dandy pointer again. Upper radiator hose, lower radiator hose. Now, what I found is that the radiator, once you seat it, it's supposed to be seated on top of this frame rail here. But once you do that, you can't line up the lower hose with the radiator because it sits up too high and just barely makes contact with the upper radiator hose. So the gap from here to here is too tall. The radiator is too tall for that. So what I'm going to do is I took a small piece of hose that I attached it to the lower hose. So now it looks like it's clamped to a fitting on the radiator. And once the radiator is installed, now for the installation, the radiator is going to have to sit on this lower ridge here. Initially, it's meant to sit on top of the frame rail in a peg that's on the frame rail itself, but since I put the frame rail on upside down, the peg is underneath the car. But we're not going to talk about that part. So what I'm going to do is mount the radiator actually on that lower ridge like that, which means that it'll make contact with the lower hose and the upper hose with the added radiator bit that I attached. And then we'll have upper and lower radiator hoses connected right to the radiator, giving it a much more realistic look. And it actually looks like it has a clamp on it. Actually worked out pretty nice. Now I have no idea what the other details inside the engine compartment should look like on this car. I would like to fabricate something just to fill it up a little bit more, because it just looks kind of empty to me. So that may be some extra detailing I do after the build. So there we go, guys. That's all of our current foiling and our current progress on the build. I'm going to be installing the radiator and attaching more of the chrome trim. As this build is wrapping up, it's really coming together nicely. There are some flaws in the paintwork, but this is a multi-piece body. When I first put it together, I wasn't sure how to paint it, or what I could paint first, or what I could paint afterwards. I would love to build another one of these, because I would attack the body completely differently than I did this time. It's a learning process. But I recommend this kit to anyone who's really looking for a challenging kit, as it's really interesting, and it's a little bit of history that is fascinating to revisit in the automotive world. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this episode, and I will see you on the next one, as we only have probably a couple more episodes to go before the final reveal of the finished product. And I'm looking forward to that, because this is an amazing build, an amazing kit from an amazing people who right now are undergoing a whole lot of suffering, and that's why this kit is in their honor, to let them know that they are not alone. Remember, just because it's not in the news doesn't mean that it's not happening. Alright guys, I will see you on the next one.